Hey folks, Scarable Squirrel here. Just thinking, I did this video earlier about the crossbeam hammer and I got a lot of great responses and thought maybe I'll go over some other tools that we have that are used for bladesmithing, blacksmithing, and especially for those newer people who may not know the purpose and the use of these different tools. So first, let's just kind of talk about rounding hammers. We hear it a lot. Here's a type of rounding hammer. This is only about 2 pounds. And this is the rounded head. And you can see it's got some gradual rounding, and some you'll see with a lot more dynamic, some will be less. And this is the flattening side. Oftentimes your rounding hammer will have this, like rounding on one side and flat on the other. In this case, I took a Harbor Freight hammer and turned it into a bit of a rounding hammer. This is a lot more subtle, and you can see this is my a peen head that I I flattened out, rounded it a bit more, made it a bit more obtuse so that I got better dynamics to it. This is a 4-pound flat face and peen. I don't use this very often, but when I do, it's because steel either doesn't want to move or I want it to move rather dramatically. I wouldn't try using this with like 52-100 or W1 steels that have a high carbon rating, because they tend to not like moving real fast. If you move them real fast, you can cause microfractures. So you also have your basic ball peen hammer. So this is what I'm talking about earlier, as far as you have some. So this is also a rounding face of sorts. You get really dramatic movement, but also it's really deep. So you got to be careful with this, because you'll thin your metal out by going deep and spreading it out, and then by the time you smooth everything out, your 1/4-inch blade turns into 1/8 inch, and then a small flat face. I use this off and on. I want to say this is a French hammer. I could be wrong. But I use this when I'm dealing with a lot of my edge work. When I'm talking about like for hidden tang knives, stuff like that, I use this because it's got that nice squared edge and rounded. It's flat, should I say. It's squared edge. It's a little rounded, so it doesn't create sharp corners, but it works great for moving metal. This was made for me. This is based on a Mastermere find. Mastermere is a Gotland Viking era. This was made for me by Christie. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. But he's in Ireland. He does great stuff. He's a traditional blacksmith, really cost effective, and does obviously amazing work. I think this is about a 2-pound hammer, 2.5-pound hammer, and I like using it a lot. Obviously, you can see it's again a flat face and a very dramatic peen. I like this because I can really get deep in there if I need to, especially if I'm talking like a deep chef knife or something where I want to work something. I can use this without messing up a whole lot of other stuff. This is what I call my adjustment hammer. So when I'm doing my normalizing cycle, if I see a little warp or a little bend, I'll use this. It doesn't need to be a whole lot of effort. I'm just doing some minor adjustments. And this was a tack hammer. I simply cut off the little magnetic wedge end or whatever the heck it is. And so now it's kind of more of a dog head. But this is what I use to do that. And when I'm doing shaping, rounding, that kind of thing, not so much for knife work, but I do some other dabbling in metalworking. This is an armorer's hammer, and so you can see it's got it's almost like a peen head, and they're 2 different sizes, but this is great for dishing, for moving metal around. I almost forgot. So one of the things I find that I use actually quite a bit In particular, anytime I'm hitting, well, you can see what happens when you use a regular hammer on your guillotine. It mushrooms out. So what I've been using lately is this brass hammer. Doesn't mushroom that out. It hasn't caused any further issues, and you still get the kinetic force you need. So a brass hammer, always a great thing to have in your toolbox. It can be useful. It doesn't really mark the steel too much, and you still get the movement you want. So I hope this has been a little bit helpful. I'll do another video later when I'm talking about some tongs and different tongs that I use, depending on how I want to hold the metal. Again, with tongs, you just want to make sure you're holding the metal securely so it doesn't jump out of your hands, it doesn't jump all over your forge. So hey, I hope this was helpful to some people. I know it's not going to reach a whole lot of individuals, but I hope it's helpful to some people. And you start thinking outside that box as far as how this hammer is going to help me. Having a large number of hammers, I mean, we see it all the time in forges and in blacksmith shops. They've got tons of hammers. It's not because they're just collecting, it's because each of those have a specific purpose. And as bladesmiths and as blacksmiths, it's important for us to think about, what's the purpose of this hammer? What am I using it for? Is there something I could use it for that's going to be better than what I've been using currently? Hey, have a great time, and I hope to talk to you all later.